morning, good morning, good morning, YouTube viewers, good morning, Facebook Nation. Good morning to all people, all colors, all races around the world, no matter where you are, men, women, children. May you have the best day. May you have an awesome day. For whatever goals that you have set forth for yourself on this day, may those goals come to fruition. Let me turn this off because that causes that static. So I had to turn that off. So let's get into it. You know, the weekend is here. It's been like a long week. No, not a long week. It's been a long 2 years. So, we can look at, you know, everything that has brought us from 2 years ago, bring us where we are now, realizing that 2 years ago, that when the pandemic hit, this is when the floodgates were open. You know, people who are conscious knew this before the pandemic and the situation happened. You know, we didn't know that it was going to happen through that venue, through that type of means, but we're seeing it. And my thing is, why aren't adults being held accountable for what we have done to this younger generation? And for people who out there who watch this, and you may be, you may be white, you may be black, no matter what race you are, look up your own race and see that the same crime is there. But what you see on TV, the same murders and all that, the same things are there. You're just showing, black people. And, which is also, it's evil when you really, really look at it. That's the most evil thing that you can do, is portray a whole race of people. And you've done this for a long, long time. You're a sadist and you're sadistic. Not my race, you, the people who are out there that do this. And, one of the things what was interesting to me is the amount of young European females who are being arrested in these murders and killing, as well as, kids, just kids, period. But you're not seeing all different races doing these heinous acts. But yet and still, all you have to do is look on YouTube, look on, social media, and you'll see it. But you're not going to see it on the nightly news. So, when we live in a world where we push propaganda on people, and this is what the whole world is, not just here. It's a bunch of sadists that are running this world. The world is actually a prison. And if you don't see it as a prison, then you might as well look at this as hell on earth. Not even hell on earth, that this is hell. When we die, we begin to live. But I always try to come, to motivate, to say, be the best person that you can be. And it's hard to do that when people can, they're unwilling to break links to say, hey, you know what, I don't condone this, so I'm not going to be a part of this. Or I don't agree with everything that you say. I only agree with a portion of what you say, where you can have discussion, and come to an understanding. But then you have, the just because they said so, group that we see here now, where opinions mean more than, facts. That's crazy. And a friend of mine, he said, you gotta, he said this yesterday. He goes, you got a lot of crazy, you're always hanging around, you say you hang around a lot of crazy people, or a lot of crazy people. And my response to him, I said, no. I said, this whole earth is crazy. The majority of the people on this earth are crazy and don't know it. When we sit back and you want to put the focus on gun control, but never once in years sitting back trying to figure out why these kids are acting out. It's you. You've done this. And for anyone to sit back and go to a discussion about gun law is just another one just because they said so. But the fact remains, kids don't wake up in the morning and have literally no emotion. No emotion whatsoever. But yet still we watch all these adults, we watch politicians, we watch movie stars, all these grown-ups acting like straight kids. The kids are acting more serious than the adults. But the one thing that I want to bring out to say that, take a bow, because you're going to get ready to see, we're already seeing it. We're seeing mass murders every week. When is the last time, we've begun to see things like this? We're seeing teenagers shooting up in public places, robberies, people being pushed in front of trains, people, being raped, people being followed home. And this is massively. This is nonstop, where it would be breaking news to say something like that 3 years ago. It'd be breaking news because it wasn't happening on the scale that it's happening on. But you know what? Because this propagation is here, and because we've allowed ourselves, us as adults, to go through life and sit back and say, hey, well, life is good for me, life is good for my family, that's all, F the world, F everybody else, sucks to be you. But yet and still, what happens when that knocks on your door? and the money that you got and the things that you spend, and hey, my family's all right, but what happens if they get robbed? What happens if they are in a movie theater and bad things happen? Which we say that I pray that these things don't, and I pray that they stop. But it's gonna take us. It's gonna take all people to do it. I realized just in the past 3 months, and like I say, I'm always with that multiple of three, because if you can understand 3, 6, and 9, then you understand everything. So I'm starting off at three, everything in threes. It's always been that way for anyone who knows me. But when we see this progression, this progression that's taking place. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, to when 14, 15-year-old kid is trying to post on, adult content media venues. Everything and anything goes. Think about it. We're going back 2 years. Think about, when this, the twerking. You got these little kids. You got wealth before love, and then you have your body over your mind. I'm not just talking about men, I'm talking about women too. When I talk about the body, I'm talking about how people, they present an outer shell that looks beautiful, but on the inside, there's nothing. And, we're seeing, narcissism coming full circle. And, people are really just doing bad things. And, I'm going to take a moment to explain this, what this woman was saying about her sister. We've all experienced this in our families. But yet still, it shows that even in our own families, if we look, that there's going to be some type of disconnect. That means that all families since birth have been messed up, and all families have been chosen to turn against one another. If you're not of my color, if you're not of my ethnicity, then we'll smile in your face, but in behind closed doors, we'll talk so bad about you because we're better. No, you tell me anyone who's on this earth who dominated. And if you say Europeans, you can't say Europeans. Europeans means people of color. Pull all those people of color out of these services, and you see what you're left with in this world. So color does dominate this earth. So it doesn't dominate this country, but it dominates this earth, and we are all living on this earth. So we need one another. But the thing is, they cause so much propaganda and so much separation, so much division. This is what we see, but we're not taking responsibility for what these kids are doing. To get back to the woman was talking how her sister, now they're up in their 50s. So the sister is like, the one who's telling the story, she's in her 50s. Her sister's give or take 2 years older, or 2 years less than she is. So her mother, was married all of her life. And so the father, her husband passed away. So, they lived in Florida. The two sisters, one sister, the one that told the story, lives in LA. And I believe the other one also lived in LA or San Diego, but they all both lived out west. So, the mother calls the sister and says, your mother, you gotta figure she's gotta be like in her 70s, almost 80s. So to find love again, think about that. That's a beautiful thing. She was with the one man her whole life. So, she tells her daughter, I've been talking to this, wonderful guy, and everything is good, but I'm afraid to commit, and, he just asked me to go to Paris with him. So she knows that Paris is expensive. She's telling her daughter that, hey, I'm not sure if I want to go, because I don't know if I'm ready to commit, and I know that, and see, think about that. There's another thing with the world we live in. She knew, even as an 80-year-old woman, that taking that trip to Florida, that there would be something that person wanted back. And this is the world we live in. People don't give things away because they want to. I do. And, but most people give because they want something back. So, long story short, the sister moves out to Florida, near where her mother is. The mother didn't end up going to Florida. This daughter ended up sleeping with the guy, and the guy brought the daughter to Florida. And it gets worse. This is how cold-hearted and cold-blooded people can be. And this is adults doing this shit. Oh, excuse me, doing this stuff. So, which, because this is a topic that, really makes me sick, that we just brush things off and think that there's nothing that we can do, and we can't. We just hide and let someone else do it. And then when it fails and when it's at your door, then they want to be a part of something. But to get back to this woman, you think that when she moved out there, guy goes to Paris, takes her to Paris, they have a wonderful time, comes back from Paris. Following months, moved right back out to where she was. This is to her own mother. So, when we're watching stuff like this, if we don't want to address the things that we have to get right before we can even begin to, try to change things for these kids, it's up to us to do it. It's up to us to see it. And like I said, I grew up, and I grew up bad, you know, and I was a bad kid. I won't deny it. But as I went through life, I realized that a lot of what I went through was pushed on me from birth, just like it's pushed on every family. You know, whether that be through propaganda, racism, classism, um, your financial status, um, and you know your demographic. Because we all know that, you know, it's easier for, you know, the people in the suburb to sit back and, you know, yell and scream and do whatever and have parties or what have you. But then on the inner city, it's like you can't do it. You can't hang out at the park. We're going to take out those basketball courts, and we're just going to leave the concrete. So it's like you take out the things that kids need. You take out the programs that kids need. You take away all the activities that kids need, and you do nothing for the kids. So you're literally leaving these kids for prison. So what I want to say, and what I want to leave with this on this day, excuse that, but what I want to leave on this day is because I say, you know, like now, as for me, I still remain optimistic. I still go out and I still speak to people, but it always saddens me when people will turn around and say, oh, well, they deserve it. You know, oh, you know how those people are. What do you mean those people? And I'm not talking about people of color. You know, it's people who are of one ethnicity talking about people in their own ethnicity, and it's not people of color. So, you know, this is all evil, and you know, we need to find the happiness that we can find, and that happiness has to come, you know, from within. You know, because we have to realize that validation doesn't come from others. All that stuff that comes from other people, once you don't have what you had, those people are gone. But a person who validates themselves can the world can fall on their shoulders, and they'll swallow it up and start all over. You know, because again, you know, it's not about validation. So they don't look at a material sense of things, but they look at things in a, you know, a real sense. So I just wanted to leave it. Like I said, I wanted it to be a good motivational, but I'm saddened. Like I just this week alone, I watched full interviews, and I suggest that you do the same. And I want to leave you with this. So I've been watching these interviews of children who have committed murder or were in act of murder, kids that were under the age of 15, 14, 13, and I think the youngest was like 11. And there's one that's 10 years old. And I'm like, I haven't seen that, and I want to watch it. But these interviews are, you know, sometimes 2 hours long, and they're boring. However, they're not boring if you know what you're looking for in those interviews. And it's the connection between emotion and what a person feels, and how a person can be absent of emotion. And this is what these kids are displaying. So I'm going to leave you with a 13-year-old. 13-year-old kid smashes his 9-year-old brother's head. Or I think the kid was 2. I'm not sure. It was either 2 or 9. Like I said, I didn't want to put too much focus on the kid, because the 13-year-old, I wanted to know what was in this kid's mind that could have caused, you know, him to carry on an act that only adult would. Well, we know that to be from movies and everything else, and all the violence that, you know, they constantly show, but they don't make movies that are, you know, uplifting and stuff like that, like changing the narrative of the world we live in. That's not happening. The movies are getting violent or violent, or TVs are getting violent or violent, all blood, all death, all blood, all death, or sex all day. So, or violence all day. Um, so the kid, he's asking him, you know, in the beginning of the interview, the kid is like a kid, like a kid. He's scared, he's nervous, he's, you know, confused, but not confused, because in that interview they ask him one key word, and you watched a grown man talking to that interviewing lady, the investigator. You watched him change, and literally in that video his eyes went black, and he became a different person. He began to talk to her like his intelligence was off of the charts, but he was actually taking in the energy from what he had done when he had committed that act against his brother. And that wasn't the first time that he had done it. He did something prior that was serious to his brother, and the mother covered it up. The mother tried to cover up both times. So this kid was a violent kid. So so when the woman asked him, she says, you know, no, he asked her, he says, oh, is my brother coming home? And he was sleeping, so once he wakes up, you know, he can go home. And she says to him, no, he may not wake up. And the kid looks at her and says, you mean his heart stops? And you would think to yourself, why those words? That sounds normal. But then when you listen to the rest of the conversation that he's having, he wants to know And this is whatever energy that was inside this kid wanted to know and to consume that the every moment, every nuance. And the kid was literally, to me, he was directing the interview. But it wasn't a kid. That was what it was ever evil that was inside that kid. But the kid never cried. He never showed emotion. He never showed anything. He looked a kid who had done something horrific. He knew he smashed the kid's head. He didn't just bump the kid's head. He smashed it. So my thing is, when you have no emotion for doing something like that, that means that it's not just the parents' fault. It's not just the family's fault. We have to look outside of these boxes to say what is causing families to be born into so much poverty while so much wealth is around us. It's crazy. And we all want to follow. And this is why we're, excuse me, this is why we're being bought like lambs to the slaughter. And trust me, not trust me, trust your own judgment. Like I said, what is bad is going to be worse. And there's an event that's coming up. And I literally, not because of fear, because it's for protection, the female that is going to be accompanying me, that there's a festival. So, this festival is going to have all people from all over the place in it. But it's there for a specific purpose, which can be viewed for like 30 days, even without the, like all the events, summer events that are coming up. So we're going to the event, less the people. So we're going to go and, it'll be like, there'll be really no people, just people who normally visit that area, local to that area, and just go and enjoy the day and see the same things that, the majority of the people are going to see. Because the more people that we're around, the more propensity to violence. We're seeing it in regular little small stores where these occurrences are taking place. And also, I had a friend, this is the last one, I have a friend, a close personal friend, who went to go, and this is right during the Christmas holidays, but not this Christmas, Christmas prior. So, so she goes to a store and she's buying some gifts. So she goes to this one store and she's, makes a purchase. I believe it was like an expensive bottle of wine. And the guy asked her for ID. And this is for people, like I said, for information for you as well. He asked her for her ID, even though, she's almost my age. She looks good for her age, but I mean, any man is gonna know this is not a kid. I don't have to ID this person. But the flip side of it is that this woman, the man, ended up showing up at her door. So think about this. Think about what we can do as people, and it all boils down to, because remember, the people that are doing these things are the people that hang around you. I'm not talking to one specific person out there. I'm talking to you all. They're all, no matter who you are on this earth, those people are around you. And most people will shrug it off, and they'll try to minimize it to say, hey, that's not me. No, it's not you, but it's what you condone. So, this is the small change that we can make in everything that we do. So, like I say, for that, everyone, men, women, children around the world, peace.